The music floated through the Manhattan penthouse like a miracle made of sound. Billionaire Richard Williams stood frozen in his home office doorway, watching something he'd been told would never happen. His 10-year-old daughter Emma, who had never walked without her walker, never spoken a clear sentence, never moved without pain from her cerebral palsy, was dancing, not just swaying, dancing. Her small hands were raised above her head, her usually rigid body moving with a fluidity he'd never seen. And holding her up, spinning her gently, was Belinda Johnson, the new maid he'd hired just 3 weeks ago. The 26-year-old woman had Emma in her arms, supporting her weight completely, but making it look like Emma was floating. "I'm flying, Daddy," Emma's voice rang out, clearer than he'd ever heard it. "Look, I'm flying like Mama." Richard's knees buckled. His wife, Catherine, had been a dancer before the car accident that took her life 2 years ago. She used to say those exact words to Emma. "Someday, my love, you'll fly." Tears streamed down his face as he watched his daughter laugh. Really laugh, for the first time since the accident. Belinda was singing something in French, a song Catherine used to sing, and Emma was trying to sing along, her words still slurred, but filled with joy. That's when Belinda spotted him. She stopped mid-spin, her eyes wide with fear. She started to put Emma down, started to apologize, but Emma clung to her. "No, more flying. Please, Belinda. Daddy, tell her more flying." Richard looked at this young woman, hired to clean his house, now holding his daughter like she was the most precious thing in the world, and made a decision that would shock everyone who knew him. "Don't stop," he said, his voice breaking. "Please, don't stop. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to where it all began." 3 weeks earlier, Richard Williams sat in his glass-walled office overlooking Central Park, interviewing his 47th housekeeper in 2 years. Emma was difficult, he explained to the agency. Not her fault. The cerebral palsy made her frustrated, angry at a body that wouldn't do what she wanted. She threw things. She screamed. She'd bitten the last 3 maids. "I understand she requires special care," the agency woman had said carefully. "We have someone, but she doesn't have the usual credentials. No formal training in special needs children. She's young, only 26, but she has something else." "What else could possibly matter?" Richard had snapped. He'd hired nurses, therapists, specialists. Emma had rejected them all. "Heart," the woman said simply. "Belinda Johnson has heart, and sometimes that's what children need more than credentials." Richard had been desperate enough to try anything. What happened next still gives me chills. Belinda arrived on a Monday morning carrying just one suitcase and wearing a dress that had been mended multiple times. Richard's first thought was that he'd made a mistake. She looked barely out of college, her hair in neat braids, her smile nervous but genuine. "Mr. Williams," she'd said, extending her hand. "I'm Belinda. Where's Emma?" Not, "Tell me about her condition," or "What are her limitations?" or any of the questions every other caregiver had asked. Just, "Where's Emma?" "She's in her room. She doesn't come out much anymore." "May I meet her?" Richard had led her down the hallway lined with photos of Catherine, dancing at Lincoln Center, teaching at Juilliard, holding newborn Emma with tears of joy. He'd kept every picture up, unable to let go. Emma's room was a medical equipment showroom. Wheelchair, walker, special bed, therapy tools, and in the middle of it all, a small girl with twisted limbs and angry eyes. "Emma, this is Belinda. She's here to—" "Go away!" Emma had screamed, the words slurred but the meaning clear. She'd thrown a book, missing Belinda by inches. "Wait, I need to tell you something crucial here." Instead of stepping back like everyone else did, Belinda had stepped forward. She'd picked up the book, a worn copy of The Nutcracker, and her face had changed. "You like ballet?" she'd asked Emma. Emma had gone still. Nobody ever asked her about ballet. They asked about her pain levels, her therapy progress, her medication schedule. Never ballet. "Mama was a dancer," Emma had whispered, the words hard to understand, but Belinda had leaned in, listening carefully. "So was I," Belinda had said quietly. "Before." "Before what?" "Before life happened. Before I needed a job more than I needed to dance. But you know what? The dance never really leaves you. It just finds new ways to move." Emma had stared at this stranger who spoke about dance like it was something you could lose and find again. "I can't dance. My legs don't work right." "Says who?" "Everyone." "Well?" Belinda had sat down on Emma's bed, something no other caregiver had ever done. Everyone is wrong. Dancing isn't about legs, it's about heart. And from that book you threw, I'd say you've got plenty of heart. Little did they know, this decision would change everything. For the first week, Belinda did her job, cleaning, organizing, staying out of the way. But Richard noticed things. She hummed while she worked, melodies that seemed familiar. She moved with a grace that seemed out of place, pushing a vacuum. And Emma had stopped screaming when she was around. Then came the day Richard had to go to Tokyo for an emergency meeting. He'd left Emma with Belinda and the night nurse, promising to be back in 2 days. But his meeting had ended early, and he'd caught a flight home, arriving at 3 p.m. instead of midnight. The penthouse was quiet when he entered. Too quiet. Emma usually had therapy at 3 p.m., and therapy was never quiet. It was crying and frustration and therapists speaking in professionally patient voices. He'd walked through the apartment looking for them, and then he'd heard it. Music. Not from a speaker, but from a voice. Someone was singing La Vie en Rose in French, the melody floating from Emma's room. Actually, let me pause here, because this detail is important. Richard had stood outside Emma's door, listening. Catherine used to sing that song. She'd learned it from her grandmother, who'd been a dancer in Paris before the war. It was the song she'd sung to Emma every night, the song that had died with her in that car accident. He'd pushed open the door to find Belinda sitting on Emma's bed, Emma in her lap, both of them looking at an old photo album. Catherine's photo album, the one Richard hadn't been able to open since she died. "That's Mama at her first recital," Emma was saying, her speech clearer than usual. "She was only 15. "She was beautiful," Belinda said. "You look just like her." "No, I don't. I'm broken." "Broken?" Belinda had turned Emma to face her. "Baby girl, you're not broken. You're just built different. Like a flower that grows sideways to find the sun. Still beautiful, just taking a different path." They had no idea they only had 10 minutes before Richard would change everything. "Belinda?" Emma had asked quietly. "Can you teach me the song, the French one? Mama used to sing it, but I can't remember all the words." "Of course, sweet girl. But you know what? Songs are better with movement, even tiny movements. Want to try?" Belinda had stood up, lifting Emma with surprising strength. She'd held her carefully, supporting her weight while leaving Emma's arms free. "Now, when we sing La Vie en Rose, we think of pink clouds. Can you reach for the pink clouds?" Emma had raised her arms, shaking with effort but determined, and Belinda had begun to turn, slowly, carefully, singing the song Catherine had loved. That's when Richard had heard it. Emma laughing. Not the bitter laugh she sometimes made when therapy hurt, but real, joy-filled laughter. "I'm floating," Emma had cried. "Belinda, I'm floating like Mama." What happened next still makes my heart race. Richard had wanted to rush in, to be part of this moment, but he'd stayed frozen, watching Belinda work magic he'd paid millions for others to attempt. She wasn't doing therapy. She wasn't following any treatment plan. She was just dancing with his daughter, seeing her not as a collection of limitations, but as a child who wanted to move. For 20 minutes, he'd watched them. Belinda had created an entire ballet in Emma's room, narrating a story about a princess who couldn't walk but could fly when someone believed in her. She'd moved Emma through the story, supporting her completely but making every movement look like Emma's choice. And then, Belinda had said, spinning slowly, the princess realized that walking was just one way to travel. She could float, she could fly, she could dance in the arms of people who loved her. "Like me?" Emma had asked. "Exactly like you." That's when Emma had said the words that broke Richard's heart and healed it at the same time. "I wish you were my mama." Belinda had gone still for a moment, then pulled Emma close. "I can't be your mama, sweet girl. Nobody can replace her. But I can be your friend, your dancing friend. Is that okay?" "More than okay," Emma had whispered. Can you imagine how that must have felt? Watching a stranger give your child something you couldn't, something money couldn't buy. The simple gift of being seen as more than her disability? They were about to turn toward the door when Belinda saw him. Her face had gone pale, and she'd started to put Emma down. "Mr. Williams, I'm sorry. I know I should be cleaning. Not—" "No," Richard had said quickly. "No, please. Continue. I need to see this." In exactly 17 minutes, everything would change. Belinda had hesitated, then looked at Emma's pleading face. She'd lifted her again, And this time, Richard had watched from inside the room as his daughter transformed. Each movement Belinda made was designed to give Emma the sensation of normal movement without the pain. She'd studied his daughter, learned her limitations, and found ways around them that no medical professional had tried. "How?" Richard had asked finally. "How did you know?" "My sister," Belinda had said quietly, still moving with Emma. "She had CP too. Different type, but similar challenges. We couldn't afford therapy, so I learned to be her therapy. Dance was all I had to give her." "Had?" "She died 5 years ago. Complications from a surgery we couldn't afford in time." Belinda's voice had stayed steady, but Richard saw the pain flash across her face. "That's why I stopped dancing professionally. Needed steady work, steady insurance, in case I found another Emma who needed help." The room had gone quiet except for the soft humming Belinda continued for Emma. "You were a professional dancer?" Richard had asked. "New York City Ballet. Corps de Ballet for 3 years. I was about to be promoted to soloist when Maya, my sister, got sick. I chose her. I'd choose her again." But that's when they discovered something that made their blood run cold. The phone call came at 6 a.m. the next morning, shattering the fragile peace Richard had found watching his daughter sleep peacefully for the first time in months. "Mr. Williams, this is Dr. Patricia Hendricks from the Manhattan Children's Therapy Center." Her voice was crisp, professional, cold. "I'm calling about Emma's treatment plan. We've received concerning reports." Richard sat up in bed, his heart already racing. "Concerning reports? From who?" "Your night nurse documented unauthorized physical manipulation of Emma by household staff. Mr. Williams, Emma's condition is delicate. Any unqualified person attempting to move her could cause permanent damage to her already compromised musculoskeletal system." "Wait, I need to tell you something crucial here." Richard's mind flashed back to Emma's laughter, to the joy on her face as Belinda spun her gently around the room. Permanent damage? That wasn't damage, that was healing. "Dr. Hendricks, I was there. I watched the entire thing. My daughter was happy." "Happiness doesn't prevent spinal injury, Mr. Williams. We're talking about a child with severe cerebral palsy. The liability alone—" She paused. "We need to schedule an immediate evaluation, and I strongly recommend you terminate any staff member who's been performing unauthorized therapeutic interventions." The line went dead before Richard could respond. Can you imagine the rage building inside him? But what happened next would shock everyone. Richard found Belinda in the kitchen, preparing Emma's breakfast. Oatmeal with berries arranged in a smiley face, something none of his previous staff had thought to do. "Mr. Williams," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "the night nurse, she told me she was reporting what happened yesterday. I understand if you need me to leave." "Leave?" Richard moved closer, his voice fierce. "You're not going anywhere. But I need to know something. Can what you're doing hurt Emma?" Belinda met his eyes directly. "Everything I do, I check her muscle resistance first. I watch her face for pain signals. I support her weight completely. She's never bearing more than she can handle. My sister taught me that pain and joy feel different in the body. When Emma is with me, her muscles relax because she's not fighting, she's flowing. The therapy center wants to evaluate her. They're calling what you did dangerous." "Of course they are." Belinda's voice held an edge Richard hadn't heard before. "Because if what I'm doing works, it means their $10,000 a week protocol isn't the only answer. It means you can't put a price tag on love and attention and seeing a child as a whole person instead of a diagnosis." Little did they know this confrontation would spark something revolutionary. Richard made a decision that morning that would cost him $2.3 million and gain him something priceless. He fired the entire therapy team, all 7 specialists who'd been treating Emma for 2 years with minimal results. Then he did something even more shocking. "Belinda," he said, "I want to hire you, not as a maid, as Emma's companion, full-time, whatever salary you need, whatever equipment you think would help. But I need you to show me everything. Teach me what you're doing so I can do it too." Belinda's eyes filled with tears. "You want to learn? I want to be part of my daughter's life again. You showed me that's possible." But that's when they heard it. A crash from Emma's room, followed by screaming. What happened next still makes my heart race. They ran to find Emma on the floor beside her bed, having tried to get up alone. Her face was twisted in pain and frustration, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I wanted to surprise you," she sobbed as Richard lifted her carefully. "I wanted to walk to the kitchen. I wanted to show Daddy I could be normal." "Baby girl," Richard started, but Belinda knelt down beside them. "Emma, look at me. You are normal. Normal doesn't mean the same as everyone else. Normal means being yourself, and yourself is perfect." "But I can't walk, I can't talk right. Kids at school laugh at me." Richard felt his chest tighten. Emma had never told him about kids laughing. She'd kept that pain locked inside. "When I was dancing professionally," Belinda said softly, "there was this one move I could never master. Grand jeté, a big leap. Every other dancer made it look easy, but my body just wouldn't do it. I cried so many times thinking I wasn't a real dancer because of this one thing I couldn't do." Emma stopped crying, listening. But then Maya, my sister, she said something that changed everything. She said, "Belinda, you're judging your swimming by how well you can fly." She meant I was measuring myself against the wrong things. I couldn't do grand jeté, but I could do a dozen other moves those dancers couldn't. I just had to find my own dance. In exactly 10 minutes, Emma would say something that would change Richard's entire business empire. "What if I can't find my dance?" Emma whispered. "What if we find it together?" Belinda extended her hand. "Today's lesson, dancing with a fall, because real dancers, we fall all the time. The magic is in how we get back up and keep moving." For the next hour, Richard watched Belinda teach Emma something no therapist had tried: how to fall safely and how to enjoy the movement of getting up. She turned it into a game, into a dance, into something Emma could control instead of fear. "Lower, that's it," Belinda coached. "Feel the floor? It's not your enemy. It's your dance partner. Push against it. Let it push back." Emma giggled as she and Belinda rolled across the floor together, each fall becoming part of an elaborate story about princesses who tumbled through clouds. Richard pulled out his phone and started recording. He wasn't sure why yet, but something told him this moment mattered beyond his daughter. Actually, let me pause here because this detail is important. As Richard watched the video later that night, he saw something the therapy team had missed. Emma's left leg, the one doctors said had almost no motor control, was moving. Not much, just tiny adjustments to keep balance as Belinda shifted her position. Movements so small they'd be invisible to anyone not looking carefully, but they were there. Emma's brain was finding new pathways, motivated not by clinical exercises but by joy. Richard spent that entire night researching. He found studies about neuroplasticity, about how the brain could rewire itself. He found articles about music therapy, dance therapy, about how joy and motivation could unlock potential that traditional therapy missed. And he found something else. Hundreds of families like his, spending fortunes on treatments that weren't working. Parents desperate for anything that might help their children. At 3 a.m., he made a phone call that would shock his entire board of directors. They had no idea this would become his greatest legacy. "Marcus," he said to his CFO, "I need you to set up a new division of Williams Industries. Healthcare innovation. I'm investing $50 million to start." "Richard, it's 3 a.m. Can this wait?" "No, because there are kids out there like Emma, and parents like me who've been told what's possible and what isn't, and I'm going to prove the experts wrong." By morning, he had a plan. The Williams Foundation for Alternative Therapy Research, a center that would combine traditional medicine with approaches like Belinda's. Physical therapy, but with music. Speech therapy, but with dance. A place that would see children as whole people, not collections of symptoms. But first, he had to survive the meeting scheduled for that afternoon. Can you imagine walking into a room knowing you're about to blow up your entire life? Dr. Hendricks arrived with 4 other specialists and 2 lawyers. They gathered in Richard's conference room, their faces grim with professional concern. "Mr. Williams," Dr. Hendricks began, "we need to discuss Emma's welfare. We've prepared documentation showing that—" "Let me stop you right there." Richard opened his laptop, turning it so they could all see. "This is video from yesterday. I want you to watch 30 seconds. On screen, Emma was laughing as Belinda spun her gently, her arms outstretched, her face radiant with joy. Now watch this." Richard clicked to another video. "This is Emma during your therapy session last week. Emma's face in this video was tight with pain and frustration, tears streaming as a therapist stretched her leg. Her screams were audible, even with the volume low. "Tell me," Richard said quietly, "which of these children looks like she's being hurt?" What happened next sent shockwaves through the medical community. "Mr. Williams, pain is often part of the therapeutic process," one doctor started. "Is it though?" Richard cut him off. "Because in 3 weeks with Belinda, Emma has made more progress than in 2 years with your team. Her speech is clearer. Her left leg, which you said had almost no motor control, is moving. And most importantly, she's happy. She wants to try instead of being forced to try." "This is highly irregular," one of the lawyers said, "without proper credentials." "Then give her credentials." Richard stood, his CEO voice filling the room. "Belinda Johnson has something none of you have, real results. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to observe her methods, you're going to document what she does, and you're going to help me figure out how to replicate it for other children." "And if we refuse?" Dr. Hendricks asked coldly. "Then I'll find researchers who won't. Because I'm building a new center, and it's going to revolutionize how we treat children with cerebral palsy. You can either be part of something groundbreaking, or you can be the people who said it couldn't be done." The room went silent. Little did they know someone was listening at the door. Emma had wheeled herself down the hall in her wheelchair, Belinda behind her. She'd heard every word. "Daddy," she called out, pushing open the conference room door. "Daddy, you're building a center for kids like me?" Richard's fierce expression melted. "Emma, sweetheart, you should be resting." "No more resting." Emma's words were slurred but determined. "I want to help. I want other kids to dance too." Dr. Hendricks stared at Emma, then at Richard, then back at Emma. For the first time, her professional mask cracked. She wheeled herself here? Alone? With Belinda's support, yes. But her upper body strength... Dr. Hendricks shook her head slowly. "Mr. Williams, that shouldn't be possible based on our assessments." "Maybe," Richard said softly. "Your assessments were incomplete. What happened over the next 6 months would make medical history." The Williams Center for Integrative Therapy opened in March, combining traditional physical therapy with music, dance, art, and joy. Belinda became the director of movement therapy, working alongside doctors who were finally willing to admit they didn't have all the answers. They started with 10 children. By month 3, they had a waiting list of 300 families. Emma became the center's youngest volunteer, wheeling herself through the halls, something she'd learned to do herself, encouraging other kids, showing them her flying dance with Belinda. News coverage went viral when a video showed Emma, still unable to walk unassisted but moving with confidence and grace, performing a modified ballet routine with 5 other children, all with different disabilities, all moving to their own unique rhythms. "They told us what our kids couldn't do," one parent said tearfully in an interview. "Mr. Williams and Belinda asked what our kids wanted to do. That simple change changed everything." But that's when something truly shocking happened. 6 months after the center opened, Emma was in a session with Belinda and a new physical therapist named Dr. James Chen, who'd left a prestigious hospital to join their team. "Emma," Dr. Chen said carefully, "I've been watching your progress. Your left leg strength has increased 300%. Your core stability is remarkable. I think you might be ready to try something new." He brought out a pair of forearm crutches, smaller than a walker, requiring more balance and strength. Emma's eyes went wide. "Walking? Real walking?" "Modified walking," Belinda said gently, kneeling beside her. "It's still your dance, just with new partners." She tapped the crutches. "These 2 are going to help you fly in a new way." "What if I fall?" "Then we'll make it part of the dance. Remember? Falling is just another movement." In exactly 3 minutes, Emma would take her first independent steps. Richard stood in the observation room, his hands pressed against the glass, tears already streaming down his face. He'd called his entire board to watch, along with a dozen journalists who'd been following Emma's story. "Ready?" Belinda asked Emma. Emma nodded, her small hands gripping the crutches. Dr. Chen positioned them carefully, showing her the technique. Belinda stood behind her, hands ready but not touching. "On 3, Emma whispered. 1, 2, 3. She pushed up. The crutches wobbled, her legs shook. Every person watching held their breath. And then Emma moved. 1 step, then another, then another. "I'm walking!" she screamed, her voice clearer than it had ever been. Daddy, I'm walking! Richard burst through the door, dropping to his knees 10 feet away from Emma. Come to me, baby girl. You can do it. Emma's face scrunched with concentration and effort. Sweat beaded on her forehead. But she kept moving, step by careful step, until she fell forward into Richard's arms. They both sobbed. Richard with joy and grief and pride, Emma with exhaustion and triumph. Mama would be so proud, Emma whispered against his chest. She is, baby. She is. And so am I. But the story doesn't end there. A year after that first day, Richard caught Belinda dancing with Emma. The Williams Center had expanded to 3 locations and helped over 500 children. Emma, now 11, was walking short distances with forearm crutches and longer distances with her wheelchair, using both without shame, choosing the tool that fit her needs each day. Belinda had become one of the most sought-after specialists in pediatric movement therapy, publishing papers with Dr. Chen about their integrated approach. But she still spent every afternoon with Emma, dancing and laughing and finding new ways to move. And Richard? He'd found something he'd lost in Catherine's death and Emma's diagnosis. Hope. Not hope that everything would be perfect, but hope that love and creativity and refusing to accept impossible could change the world. The final scene that brought everything full circle happened on the anniversary of that first day. Richard found Emma and Belinda in the penthouse living room, dancing to La Vie en Rose, just like that first time. But now Emma was standing on her own 2 feet, crutches laid aside, holding Belinda's hands for balance, but holding herself up through her own strength. Look, Daddy, Emma called, her speech almost completely clear now. I'm really flying. Richard joined them, and for the first time in 3 years, he danced. Awkward, unpracticed, but dancing nonetheless. The 3 of them spinning slowly to Catherine's song. 3 people who'd found each other when they all needed saving. Thank you, Richard whispered to Belinda over Emma's head. You gave me my daughter back. You gave me myself back. No, Belinda said, tears glistening in her eyes. You gave me a second chance to honor my sister. You gave me a family. Family, Emma said firmly. That's what we are now. Right, Daddy? Right, baby girl. That's exactly what we are. As the music played and the sun set over Manhattan, painting the penthouse in gold and pink light, Richard Williams realized something profound. He'd spent decades building an empire worth billions, but his greatest achievement would always be this moment. 3 broken people who'd made each other whole. Because sometimes the most valuable thing a billionaire can buy isn't something money can purchase at all. It's the wisdom to recognize a miracle when a young woman with nothing but heart and hope walks through your door and shows you that love, real, unconditional, persistent love, can make the impossible real. Emma kept growing stronger. The Williams Center kept expanding, and every afternoon at 3 o'clock, no matter how busy life got, you could find a billionaire, a former ballet dancer, and a little girl who refused to stop flying, dancing together in a Manhattan penthouse. Dancing like Catherine had taught them all along. Not with perfect technique or flawless steps, but with heart, with hope, and with the absolute certainty that some things are more important than what the world says is possible. Some things, like family, like love, like a young girl finally finding her wings, are simply miracles. And miracles, as Richard Williams learned, don't always come dressed in fancy degrees or expensive credentials. Sometimes they come dressed as a 26-year-old woman with mended clothes and a suitcase full of dreams, ready to teach a broken family how to dance again. If you enjoy this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more.